Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Silver Tears Tarot and welcome to the All About Communication reading. So, one of the things that showed up over the last couple days is a lot of questions around communication. Should I be communicating? Are they going to be communicating? If they do communicate, what might that look like? What should I do about it? That sort of thing. And so we're going to basically get in and do an all about communication reading. It'll be a general reading as always. And so it's going to be a general reading for this collective, which means it's not going to resonate with everybody, really shouldn't resonate with everyone. But if it does resonate with you, maybe take a look at some of the other readings that are on this channel because they're all very much connected. Maybe even take a look to see, maybe go ahead and subscribe, see what's coming out for you, because some of you are coming into the collective and I'm kind of noticing a swell of new people right now. And what I'm mostly noticing is a greater diversity of energy. That's how it feels for me on my end of it. And I always wondered how that would be to read for a collective and what happens when that collective makes a shift. And so it's interesting because I don't feel like I drive it, but I feel, and I don't feel like I'm driven by it, but I feel like I become aware of it. It's an interesting thing. So we're going to start out just kind of looking at what is that in that energetic backdrop for you right now. And I feel like this will help us as we look at the greater question about communication, just kind of what's in there. Okay, being in control, being in the driver's seat, being in a position, and this is both of you, being able to kind of manifest your own realities at this time. So being able to make a communication should you desire to do so. Knight of Cups is about it's a very communicative, but it also a very loving sort of energy coming from this. Creative. I feel like there's a lot of creativity from this. So it's not just I can, it's an inclination toward. So if I had seen this Knight of Cups come out in the reverse, that might have been an inclination away from this type of behavior. It's not just an inclination toward the behavior. It's an inclination toward doing it in a particularly like charming sort of way. We also have the Hierophant, though. That's the kicker. That's the part that's going to be particularly attractive to you or difficult for you to ignore. This Hierophant energy is very much, it's a feeling of them having learned something. They have, and we know that this is true because we've seen this come out in previous readings, but here's a person who has learned something significant and is now trying to use it. I don't necessarily get the sense that they figured out everything they need to figure out in order to use it, but they do feel inclined to use it. And that comes out especially with the Knight of Cups, but the healing or the, I guess I would call it, so it's healing. That is what this is, but it's also more just an improvement that's happened on their part that happens to also include healing goes hand in hand with the improvements that they've made, but I would not characterize it as just the healing journey part of it. I think there's more to it than that. What you'll find is this is an incredibly real person. If they choose to be vulnerable with you, you're going to see a fair amount of that. I think you're going to be kind of impressed with what you see compared with what you've seen in the past, but you still may not truly accept it. So this card was trying to kind of turn to get to a place where you would be more willing to trust it. You may find yourself wanting to bend, because the Nine of Stones was trying to turn to wanting to bend, wanting to fall into some old patterns that don't necessarily do you very much good. And in so doing, you may find yourself accepting of some things that you really don't think are okay, but you're willing to act like they are because you've done this before and you know what it takes to move past not thinking it's okay, I guess. You're not being really encouraged to do that. You're encouraged to be genuine and draw your boundaries where they're supposed to be, although there is some acknowledgement that it would take some definite some definite courage to make it happen that way. So let's see, here's the order we're actually going to take these. So we've got the Five of Mirrors in reverse, that's water energy. Five of Spirals in the upright, that is fire energy. And Seven of Stones in the reverse, earth energy, just like this Nine of Stones we see over here. So the Seven of Stones in the reverse is always constantly kind of having it in the back of your minds, both of your minds, what didn't go well in this situation, in places where maybe you wish you had handled something a little bit differently, or you don't feel confident about the way you always questioned maybe the way you handled something. That is maybe sitting in the back of your mind, and it's one of those things where you wonder, is it something I did? Is it something I said? Is it you maybe suspect it is, and you may be assigning a little more weight to it than it truly is due. With the Five of Spirals here, understand that things happening are not necessarily easy in this energy. So, not that you can't make progress, just that it could be a challenge to do so. I still get that it's a good energy for you to make progress, and I feel also like you're going to have a level head about it. This is a shared energy, both of you having a reasonably level head about it. This is part of what adds to like your person's ability to have charisma, that they seem like they are coming from a really rational place instead of just something that seems a little pie in the sky. So, you have a Two of Spirals coming here, which ends up being a crossroads, a choice you have to make. You have the High Priestess in reverse, the Hermit in the upright. I'm not sure if we're going to take anything below that or not. Depends on if it has the glow to it, but we're going to start here. So with the Two of Spirals, like I said, there is a bit of a crossroads. You see this bird here evaluating two different nests, and it's not two different households in this case. Sometimes when you get this, it's a feeling of your person having to evaluate between like your household and a third party household or something like that. This time it doesn't feel like that, but it does still feel like making a choice and very much making a decision to go down a direction. And so there's a need to make a need to make a choice, but not a lot of connection with that higher power and that higher self that really makes those types of decisions a little bit more reasonable. However, they're being gifted with the opportunity to think and feel. They're being gifted with the opportunity to think about this with the Hermit in the upright, and to feel about it with the Ace of Mirrors in the upright. So this is something that feels a little bit new to them. It's going to feel like a lot of emotion coming through to them, but it's emotion that they do have the option to keep to themselves, and they get to a place where it gets to be a little big to keep to themselves. But keep in mind also, here's somebody who is coming through a little bit of a shift, and so you may see that we've seen their awareness of the situation increasing. Everyone's awareness is going to look a little bit different. I don't necessarily, again, see that strong connection with the higher power, which would make this decision a little bit more, I guess, tenable. However, what I do see is a lot of a need to really they need to take advantage of this opportunity to think about it and to feel about it, because until they know, until they can very definitively say, here's the direction that I want to walk, it's going to continue looking like that Knight of Wands in reverse kind of energy to you, at least. I see a Knight of Cups here, but it doesn't seem very serious. It seems kind of, it still seems kind of Knight of Wands in the reverse, which is to say, a little bit of that, yeah, holding back. But it's a little bit of that in and out kind of behavior. It's the breadcrumbing. It's the only being there a little bit and then spending most of their time being generally unavailable. I still feel a sense of that because of the lack of a connection here, but I feel like there's a greater likelihood that they're going to figure out what they need to do because of this ability to think about it and feel about it. They really have to be able to take that opportunity, because with the Four of Stones here, I see that they're still holding something back. I get the sense that this isn't something that they're holding back from you so much as something they're more holding back from themselves. that could be a shared energy too, but I feel them in it. So when I talk about these energies, this is energetic backdrop, and so it's generally energy that's going to be shared. But I will usually talk about one of you or the other of you a little bit more within the context of each card, because a lot of times you're not coming through exactly evenly, even if it is somewhat shared. So if I say, hey, there's this opportunity, they're sitting there thinking about, and this one's pretty shared, but thinking about what they haven't maybe done well, or what they wish they had done a little bit differently, you may also very much be having that feeling, and it's coming to the fore at this point. Like you're having these memories and saying, wish I hadn't handled it this way. And there's no way to go back and make the change. The reaction has already occurred, that things have already happened. And so that's kind of fruitless, but it's also very difficult to stop yourself from doing sometimes. Okay, so let's look at the communication portion of this. And this was meant to be kind of the backdrop of what the communication reading falls on. So we are looking for all information about communication. We know at this point with this Knight of Cups that your person is inclined toward communication, but we don't exactly know much about it. What else do we need to know about it? So I've got a King of Wands here that has come out. It is a mostly balanced King of Wands. So it's got a very take charge kind of feel to it. And the thing is, remember that even whether it's a king or a queen or an emperor or an empress, or whether the card implies gender or not, it's really the energy that's coming from the card. So a King of Wands can be an energy that applies very much to someone who is female and identifies as female, and has female gender, but that take charge feeling can still occur, will still occur in everyone. We all have the masculine and feminine energies, and so this is just something to keep in mind. But here's a take charge type situation. That the only thing is, I mentioned that it is a mostly stable or a mostly balanced King of Wands. There's a little bit of an overpowering sort of feel to this as well. So keep in mind, we're talking about, this is a reading that is, this portion of the reading is about communication. So you're talking about someone who is being controlling and possibly getting to a place of being controlling, but definitely driving things forward and being very purposeful in their behaviors and their actions. We have the Chariot. That is more purposeful behavior. King of Swords right there, not particularly well thought out. King of Swords relies on that logic and is a purveyor of good logic. So the thing is, when the King of Swords isn't utilizing the logic, sometimes it comes out as a red flag to me, like, what is happening when you know this is a strong point? Why would you choose not to go that direction? Which is how this is coming across. Certainly not always how such a thing might be coming across, but it's got my attention that this King of Wands is it's mostly stable, and this King of Swords is not using the gifts of this psyche, of this energy. The gifts of this energy really involve being able to be logical and to line things up. I don't see much of that being employed here, so I feel like this is almost throwing themselves at a target when they go to have a conversation with you. But what they're throwing at the target, so what is themselves, has changed somewhat. And that's the part that you're more likely to notice and be impacted by, because they have done some growth. Just be aware there may still be a tendency to want to control things. We've got the Hanged Man. Yeah, all right. So with the Hanged Man in the reverse like this, and we've got the King of Mirrors. I almost said King of Cups. It is that water energy in the reverse. The thing that's happening here is, here's a person that is coming your direction to communicate, or wants to come your direction. They dream about it. This is a person who, is heavy on the fantasies and the dreams, and they're thinking about communicating with you. They're thinking about in this almost chivalrous sort of attitude, and it's very uh, it's also very humble, the way that they want to approach you. It feels very much like they are able to manipulate the way that they are viewed, and that that's something that they would want to do. And keep in mind, manipulation is not always a bad thing, but in this case, it's very much playing a part or acting out a role. And so you have someone who is doing this, but yet they're lacking some of the information that they need to properly play that role. And so they're kind of so supplementing it with this control over here. The thing that feels like a red flag is that they're not really running it through their logic. But with the King of Mirrors, I can kind of see why. Because if they run it through their logic, they're really going to have a hard time getting anywhere. Running it through their logic would result in them not reaching out to you. It would result in them actually staying quite quiet. So if you see them go back and run it back through their logic filters, it's going to come out with a, you're going to have to keep quiet. But with the King of Mirrors here, that's that water energy, and that is that limitation, that emotional limitation that would actually cause the short circuit and cause things to quiet down and slow down. We have the Page of Spirals in reverse here also. So this is something that's kind of working against them. And I feel like it's almost got that sense of, it's interesting because it's like seasonal affective disorder, but it's seasonal affective disorder. It's knowing it's coming. It's not necessarily the act of having it. It's like, oh, here it comes, and I'm already bummed out just thinking about it. It's that kind of energy. So it's like a depression, but it's almost a proactive depression. You have a Three of Scrolls here. That is a sadness. Proactive depression that starts to kind of trigger a little bit of a sadness. And that gains its own sort of momentum. And suddenly you have somebody who's getting up in their head. And you have this King of Swords energy. The good side, the healthy side of the logic of the King of Swords can't really be employed. You may have somebody talking themselves out of communication before they're able to even hit send, or before they even get done figuring out what they want to say. In fact, during the course of writing the note, I see them, really struggling with it to the point where they say, is this really the right time, or should I sit on this for another couple days, But you've also got that Queen of Spirals and the King of Spirals energy. I did not see this underneath here. The King and Queen of Spirals energy that's working together. What's really special about these guys is how much they are magnetized toward one another in this energy. I guess I can't be too surprised the cards were sitting next to each other and came out together like this, because it's almost like the Lover's card, but multiplied and without the choice element. It's more of just a that's the way this is kind of feeling that is that's happening between the two of you. And I can't help but think this is because your energies are so close to one another, and they have been now for quite some time. So as they go in and out of communication with you, and in most cases no communication at this point, this has been a situation where their energy didn't really draw back. So we've got a Knight of Scrolls. Knight of Scrolls in the reverse, though. This is that feeling of needing to hide, and in some cases, that's what's going to happen. So you have, there are some of you that are going to receive communication, and it's going to be impressive because of this energy that they've got behind them. But there are some that are going to not get as far as making the communication because they talk themselves out of it. Or because, and in some cases they start the communication and then they run. That's the feeling of the Knight of Scrolls. I don't feel like the Knight of Scrolls energy gets enacted unless they do communicate, but with this King and Queen of Spirals pulling together so much, it seems like it would be difficult to miss. And difficult for them to not end up feeling like they're going to come towards each other. So I dropped a couple of cards. Oh, and they're all face down. Let's see here. Okay. I thought it was, for some reason in my mind's eye, they were gonna, I would look down there and they would be all over the place a lot more than they were. Okay, so we have the Nine of Mirrors. It's a sense of your person being in a situation they're not super happy about, and there's a lot about that they want to tell you. They want to let you know. There's a desire for them to come forth in a way that makes them look like they're already healed, or they actually just want to already be healed. This is not them trying to lie to you or bring you some sort of false view. This is what they just wish they were more than anything. When they fantasize, they are whole, they are healed, and they are coming to you much the way that they're going to attempt to come to you here. So this is a Knight of Mirrors. It's a lot like this Knight of Cups energy, only the Knight of Cups energy believes in itself in this context a little bit more than this one. This one's got a little bit of a fake it till you make it kind of element, but it's still pretty strong ability to fake it and get by. That said, you have the Divine Child, you have the Hierophant. This is the actual real deal improvement that a person is going through, but it also involves them having a little bit more of a strong connection with that higher self and that higher power in order to really kick this off. So the strength, the growth is happening, but it's not happening quickly, and that's why you've got this person kind of filling in the blanks with some of the, let me just go ahead and control this. And this is how they end up overpowering it and like crushing their own opportunities to reach out to you. But you have a lot of a sense of them wanting to hide. You have a lot of sense of them wanting to, knowing that they're going to have limited emotional capacity. But what I really like here is that with this energy over here, that limited emotional capacity almost gets a bit of a break. Almost gets a bit of a break in this energy so they can bypass it. There's a lot of potential here. So I guess, I know I'm reading for a lot of people, but it feels like there's a strong tendency toward communication and wanting to let something out. I see it again here with this Moon card. There's a desire to let the communication out, a desire to let you know something that's going on. And I've seen that in a couple of different places here. There's a lot of magnetism between the two of you, making you want to come closer together. There's a lot of drive in their end, but that drive in their end, if misconstrued, if they handle it at a lower level, like, so you've got King of Wands and then you've got Knight of Wands. Knight of Wands, a little bit more ramrod kind of behavior and energy. King of Rods or Wands is a little bit more articulate. And so it really kind of, it depends on how it all plays out and whether this person is able to keep themselves in a good place. Because I mean, the amount of Knight of Wands energy that's coming out of this King of Wands over here is actually pretty high. That's the part that feels like that it's not, that's the part that feels like it's not particularly balanced, is the part that says, oh, I'm not sure how to do this, well, I'll fill in the blanks. That's like pure Knight of Wands energy kind of coming in through there, which not always a bad thing to fill in the blanks, improvise, get there anyway. But in this case, it ends up being control, and it's, if you knew what you didn't know, you never would have approached it this way. But with this King of Swords here in the reverse, they're really kind of not giving themselves much of a chance, and they're not giving themselves much of a chance because of the King of Mirrors in the reverse, because they know they have a tendency to say, you know what, never mind, I probably don't want to, but they really do want to. So there's so much struggle here. You're going to see a couple different things. And those of you where they do reach out, you will see that there may be a tendency for them to run away a little bit. But in this energy, it may take them longer to do that. There is still opportunity for a very good conversation here. Just not necessarily high likelihood for, and then they lived happily ever after. It looks like there's still some working back and forth that has to happen. So I feel like when we get into the extended, we need to take a closer look at we'll break this out a little bit because this was a broad communication question. And I think we need to look at, for those who, maybe, do we break it up? We could either break it up as far as those who communicate versus those who don't make it as far as communication, or no, because I think a lot of the messages are very much the same. It's just a matter of how far they get down the road. Let's get a feel for what you realistically can expect when we get into the extended. Because at this point, it looks like you should expect communication when you overlay this energy with this, but we can answer the question directly. So we'll ask about what you can expect and kind of get you a little bit of a communication forecast. First, let's be looking at kind of what your focus needs to be. And so for those of you who fast forward to the third pile because you want to hear about the advice for you, this is for you. But of course, it still helps to have some idea of what's happening in those other piles so that you know what size grain of salt to take this with. Be aware that you may be inclined to be not necessarily short-tempered at this time, but you might have limited ability to manage all of the stimuli coming your direction. And sometimes when you have only so much bandwidth, there are some things that end up suffering. So when you do that, be aware of it. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be able to be all things to all people at all times, but just be aware that you may be, try not to hit it too hard. This note or this card here feels very much like you're going to not be able, or you're going to be able to control that. You're going to be able to say, okay, I can't actually do all this at one time. I don't know everything that I need to know, which is part of what's coming out with this moon card, but I'm still going to be able to get by without digging too deep a hole for myself. And honest to goodness, that is the energy of this card. It is about not digging too deep a hole for yourself when you get into an overwhelmed situation that you then have to dig yourself out of. So an example, you're walking into a situation and there are 4 or 5 different people that confront you with different topics all at the same time, and you can't have these conversations with all of them at the same time. The way that you redirect the conversation to say, hey guys, let me do this one at a time, and I think you were first. What did you say? Whatever it is that you say to help direct traffic, that's probably going to be the piece that gets you judged more than any decisions you make or any other things that you say under this energy. That is really what wants to come out with this. So be aware that it's not so much what you say, but how you say it in this energy. And that's true in a lot of energies, to be perfectly honest, but it really shows up here. You've got the Tower in reverse. This is that tendency to not want to move forward with something that is very much in the guidance. It's almost like it's a no-brainer. This is something that you need to do, but it's going to enact other change. So it's going to cause you, with the 8 of Mirrors here, this is like 8 of Cups, going to send you on a bit of a quest. It's a pain. Okay, but a pain, it's not necessarily going to be full of pain. So that's one of the things I think that is different between this and some of what you've experienced in the past, is that some of these treks you've gone on have been painful and they've been a pain. This one's going to be extra energy, so it's going to be a pain from that standpoint, but I think it's going to be quite joyful. I think you're going to be very happy with the experiences that you're having. It's the sort of thing where you look back and you say, wow, that did take a lot of energy and I'm glad I did it. That's where you're being guided with this Tower. So you're being encouraged to give it a chance, go ahead and let things fall. Not going to fall as far as you think. It's not going to incorporate that much pain or require you to go through too much pain. You are moving in a place that into a place of happiness. This is something that's been coming out in the readings here for you a little bit for quite some time. And honestly, it's like, I don't know if it's been the last couple of months or at some point I was like, I'm so glad you guys get to see these cards come out, because otherwise I don't know, like if I was just telling this story and you were just listening to it, I don't know if you would believe it, in a lot of cases, like we get honesty, we get the Emperor coming out in reverse saying, okay, but you have a tendency to want to move things along once you see yourself moving toward happiness and going in a good direction, you tend to want to be able to go really fast, which that's fine. But there are some pieces that still need to be kind of smoothed out before you can get there. And so be cognizant of that. You're going to be ending up with Empress in reverse energy if you are not careful, which would be, I'm not prepared for getting to the place of happiness by the time that I get there because I didn't do everything along the way. Don't be reluctant to do the things along the way. The fact that you're heading in the right direction does not mean all the work is done. You know this on an intellectual level, but sometimes knowing it as you feel through things can be helpful as well. So you've got the 7 of Spirals. 7 of Spirals in reverse, basically saying a lot of what we just got done hearing. And it's about investing in yourself, making sure that you do so. There is something that grows in you as a result of investing in yourself. It ends up being incredibly positive for you. But there is also something that needs to be healed. So there's something that needs to be healed with this page of mirrors that has it's like you need to receive some sort of apology. Doesn't necessarily need to come from the person who wronged you. It's almost like you need to be able to feel the warmth of forgiveness in this direction. And so this is something that it would be one of those things that only you really have control over, because you're the one that would be wielding the forgiveness. But it's not as simple as saying, I forgive you. There's also that element of having to accept that person for what they were and who they were at the time of the infraction that you noted, you know? I mean, so it really kind of, it's a process, and it's not something that happens immediately, but this is something that you can be focusing on right now. Also, making sure that it never happens again, making sure that the balance that exists in your life is something good and solid and natural and true, and you're not forcing balance. You're not constantly having to say, here are my boundaries, I'm going to need you to respect those. Like, it at some point needs to not be the thing that you're constantly talking about. With the Five of Scrolls in the reverse, I like the way this feels, because it's very similar to this Five of Swords in the reverse up here. It's a very no nonsense, not throwing good energy after bad, but it has this feeling of no longer throwing good energy after bad. So there's a sense of things having improved in some way that you're now going to be able to use as you work through this energy all across here, which we're going to get in. And this is, again, communication energy. So this is kind of that energy of them moving towards you and you being magnetized toward them. Even if communication doesn't happen, this still pulls on you. So having something, knowing that you've got not just this pulling on you, but also these factors happening, is also very helpful as you work through it. Now you know whatever this change is, you're being encouraged to lean into it. And a lot of the rest of this will fall into place. But you're still going to have to do things like ensure that your interactions with people are balanced. Allow yourself to move toward happiness, which is a lot of times just kind of getting out of your own way. But also making those investments in yourself where it is appropriate to do so. And then you've got the King of Scrolls. So King of Scrolls in the upright, similar energy to that King of Swords here that's in the reverse. What's beautiful about this is that that's your ability to kind of build a strategy that makes you happy. Creates a fruitful household. Scrolls energy or air, it's air energy. It's not necessarily what you make your household out of, but it can very easily supplement and influence that which you make your household out of, which is that earth energy. So, that, I think this is with you. It feels like there's so much ability to manifest, which is really the very first thing that came out. There's so much ability for you to manifest right here. It is just a beautiful thing. This is what you have building in you right now, and what all of this is kind of pushing you, propelling you toward, which can be hard to understand sometimes when you're living in it. So when we get into the extended, we're going to take a look to see kind of what the communication forecast looks like for you a little bit. Well, what can you expect to have happen? So we know some are going to reach out and some aren't going to, but like, what does this look like? We'll get a little bit more into that. The link for that is down below in the description if you'd like to take a look at it. So if you're going to be one of those, then I will see you there. Otherwise, I will see you again in tomorrow's reading.